Welcome to Financial Advisor and Pastor Walk into a Bar, Revelation Part 23. In this episode, Pastor Jason and Financial Advisor Benjie continue Revelation Chapter 6 with the third horseman. Let's listen in.
On to number 3 here. I have it as famine, the third seal. So this is verse 5. When he broke the third seal, I heard the third living creature saying, "Come." I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard something like a voice in the center of the 4 living creatures saying, "A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not damage the oil and the wine." Okay, this is real specific.
Yeah.
And scales, meaning measuring scales,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
For balancing.
Yep.
Not like fish scales or anything.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely not those.
All right. So, yeah, take me through this one.
Yeah. So there's a lot that's going on here. And one of the things I wanted to just highlight real quickly as we talk through this is in verse 6, it says, "Then I heard something like a voice among the 4 living creatures saying, a quart of wheat." So now there's a voice that is speaking out among the 4 living creatures.
Yeah.
And it says the message about, 3 quarts of, or a quart of wheat for a denarius, 3 quarts of barley for a denarius. The interesting thing to me in this is, once again, it just goes back to confirm that this is happening within the realm of heaven, this communication.
Okay.
This is all taking place by God's plan.
Okay.
By the plan of Jesus as a judge. This is his plan. And I think it's important, at least when I think through this, it's important for me to wrap my mind around the fact that there will be a day when the image of Jesus and even his communication, if you will, shifts.
Okay.
Because he will not always be that 33-year-old, timid man who came to heal, and I say timid as almost like it's a negative thing. There's this image of weakness in that. I think we want to picture Jesus not as a human being, not as some powerful human, but as the one who is being mocked and spit upon and made fun of and ridiculed. And yet, I think it's important to recognize how much strength he actually had and demonstrated to allow himself to be mocked and humiliated and spat upon, when he could have simply commanded. I mean, even Satan took him up on the top of the temple and said, "Throw yourself down and a legion of angels will come to save you."
Right.
Even Satan knew what power Jesus had.
Yeah.
And yet, at no point in time did Jesus ever shift the narrative, if you will.
Right.
He controlled himself. I think about, meek, the word meek from a Christian perspective. When we see that word meek in Scripture, it's this picture of this stallion, powerful, snorting, pawing at the ground, and yet meek is this bridled and controlled power.
Okay.
And yet, this is the image of Jesus, one who is meek, with this understanding that he is extremely powerful. And so to me, whenever we think about, now all of a sudden the narrative is shifting, where Jesus is now commanding these things to happen.
Right.
This is no longer the slaughtered lamb. This is now Jesus, the lion. Even though it is the lamb in this revelation who's doing this, but this is the behavior of a lion who is coming to act justly and create war, if you will. So I say all that because now we see this black horse, and from this we see famine happening, and the way we know that there's famine and inflation is because back in those days you could get 8 quarts of wheat for 1 denarius. A denarius was a day's wage.
Okay.
And you could buy 8 quarts of wheat for a denarius.
All right.
But now 1 quart of wheat is costing you 1 denarius. So that means there's 8 times inflation.
Wow.
And so what does inflation do for those who are already poor? It makes it even harder.
Yeah.
It makes it worse for them. And so the people who are going to suffer during this time are those who are already poor. They will only become poor. They will only become weaker. They will only suffer more.
Yeah.
This is not going to have the same effect upon the wealthy and the rich, because they're going to still be able to pay and to do the things. But the sickness, the death, the disease, the famine is only going to get worse for those who are already suffering.
Okay, so first thing that came to my mind when we were talking about the scales and the quartz and the denarius, and you're defining, how much of inflation, I thought Jerome Powell needs to go and cut the Fed rate. That was a bad one. So,
modern day interpretation.
Yeah. So are you saying, I'm going back to the voice though.
Yeah.
So are you saying that the voice is Jesus? Is that what it is? Or something of a voice? That's the other thing that pops in my head here too.
It may be Jesus' voice, but it is definitely a voice that is speaking out of the command of Jesus.
Okay.
He is whether he's speaking it or he's allowing it, it only happens because he has
broken the seal.
Yeah, and he's granted it the authority.
Okay.
This voice, if it's not his own, this voice only speaks out of his authority.
Okay. Ooh, that's interesting. And it says, and I heard something like a voice. He didn't say it was a voice. It was like a voice. So it's kind of going back to that theme that we talked about before, where he's naming these images, but he's using what he knows exists at the time to describe it. Yeah. And so when you say something like a voice, well, probably not something that seems like a voice that I know, but it's saying something that I can understand, so I'm thinking that it's a voice. Yeah. which is wild. Is it like a roar that's talking, or is it like a digital voice that we're kind of accustomed to, but he's not?
Yeah. And it's a great question that you ask, and I don't know the answer to it. Yeah. And are we making potentially a bigger deal out of it than what it really was? Yeah. Who knows? I also think about the day of Pentecost. Okay. And my mind just goes to the day of Pentecost when the Peter stands up and he begins to speak. But during that time is the people are hearing the disciples in their own language. Yeah. And yet we know the disciples were speaking in languages that weren't their own, or at least we believe they were. So what was happening? Were the disciples simply speaking in their tongue, and yet the people were hearing their own? Were the disciples speaking in languages that were not their own, and the people were hearing it in their own? Yeah. We're not 100% sure. Does the Holy Spirit have the ability to do either one? Most definitely, or other options. Yeah. But yet somehow in the midst of it, it was being heard in such a way. Right. And I think the same thing is happening here. It's like, I don't really know what was going on, but I was hearing it, Yeah. And yeah, so.
This reminds me of something I read not too long ago, talking about the stones that were in New Jerusalem that lined the streets. I guess was it 12 stones, or?
Ooh, I'm curious.
I'd have to remember it, but there's specific stones, and we talked about this a little bit before, because on the breastplate of the
priest,
they had the same stones, I think. Yes.
Okay, yes.
Is it 12?
Yes, there's 12 stones, one for each tribe.
Each tribe. So when I was looking at this, the thing I read, it was a scientific kind of a piece, and it was talking about going down to the molecular level. Yeah, level.
Molecular. There you go. Yeah.
Of stones and how they're made and how light goes through them. Okay. There's I guess 2 types. One lets light go through it, and the result is that you get nothing. You don't see anything in it. Huh. Or light goes through it and it becomes a brilliance of different colors. Okay. And it's it's at that level that it happens, because when you see it with your naked eye, it's just, the color of an amethyst or the color of a ruby.
Yeah.
But when you get down to see how the light interacts with that stone, it creates this rainbow of colors, I think is what it is.
Almost like what you'd see with the diamond or something.
Well, that's the interesting thing, is that they said that with the diamond, it's on this side of it where it's a clear color where you don't see the rainbow.
Okay.
It's nothing. And there's other stones that when the light shines through it and you see it in that level, it's black.
Huh.
And so, he kind of goes on explaining it, the science behind it, what's going on. And then he ties it to the Bible, and he says that all the stones that are listed in the book of Revelation with the New Jerusalem that's coming down.
Yeah, the 12 levels of foundation.
Yeah, all of the ones that are in the foundation are on this side, meaning that when light shines through it, it's a rainbow of colors.
Huh.
And he said that this knowledge of what is taking place at that level with light going through those specific stones was not in existence back then. Nobody knew about it until like the 1930s, 1940s, when they were looking at the stones through microscopes and whatnot. And he said, how incredible is that of a design that God put these specific stones to be the foundation of the New Jerusalem, that when light shines through it, it creates this beautiful illumination, as opposed to these other stones that don't have that. Yeah. And he said, he went down the list, and he was saying it was stones that matched up against what was said in the Bible.
Dude.
And I was just like, I've never heard that one before.
I'd never have either. That's
I'd have
cool.
to fact check that.
Okay, yeah. Hey, but it was on Google.
Yeah.
It was the internet, so it's got to be true.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So the one thing we haven't talked about is just the oil and the wine.
Yeah.
So he says, save the oil and wine. So don't, sell the barley, sell the wheat, but don't sell the oil and wine. And so one of the things that some have wondered is because oil and wine were considered to be like luxuries of the elite.
Okay.
And with this oil, some have even proposed that it might actually be referring to like beauty treatments.
Okay.
So this idea of the black horse has come, there's famine, there's starvation, it's getting really, really bad, death is happening because of that, but the rich are still getting their beauty treatments. And so this dichotomy of just some are going to suffer so bad, while others will still be doing just fine. And it's just interesting how each of these different seals being broken, different people, different types of suffering are happening. Yeah. And so that was one of the things there.
That is really interesting, because it talks about the the differences of where the idea that's out there with the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and all the talk that we're getting closer and closer. But I don't prescribe. I don't follow the idea of where we're going, because we don't know, and I don't know how many times in history it's happened where people are thinking we're going to go to end times and we got another 100 years added on to that time period, right? But interesting to see that it's either one, we're getting closer, or two, that's how it's always going to be. That, true. We're going to have that disparity between the two. Okay. All right. So 4 is death.
You've been listening to a financial advisor and pastor walk into a bar. Sometimes Benjie and Jason raise more questions than answers, because God has a message for you, and you're not going to hear it unless you open the Bible and read it for yourself. Thanks for listening.